Blacker than licorice.
What up, world, and welcome back to the Pursuit of the Good Life podcast. I am your host, the Cameron Lovelace, joined as always by the intelligent Dr. Sarah Benson. Sarah, what's going on?
Not that much. I'm excited. You want to know why I'm excited, Cam?
Why are you excited?
I'm excited because it is February 1st.
What does that mean?
It is Black History Month, my favorite month in the entire year. Have on my pretty black and educated shirt today. But I'm excited. I don't know. It's just something about Black History Month that just inspires me to just live in all my black excellence and just all my black girl magic.
Absolutely. I know some people feel some type of way about Black History Month. It's like, well, why we only get 1 month, or why this, why that? And so I kind of feel like, because the world doesn't recognize every month as Black History Month or give us credit when things happen. So, I think it's okay to sit here and celebrate it as a month. But in honor of Black History Month, we want to start off the show with the Black History moment that maybe some of y'all may or may not know. So, Sarah, take it away with your pretty black educated self.
Thank you. So our Black History moment today is we want to just highlight a young lady named Claudette Cloven. For those of you who do not know her, she was actually one of the first people who started the whole bus movement in Montgomery. She was a 16-year-old and she decided that she did not want to give up her seat for a white person. One of the reasons why we really don't know that much about her or why she wasn't the face of the movement was because she was 16 and she was an unwed single mother. And if you all know a lot about that time, we were much more conservative than we are now. And so when Rosa Parks, who did the same thing a few months later, the NAACP felt like she had a better look for the movement. And so a lot of people have not heard about Miss Claudette, but I feel like she's very important and somebody who we should know and understand, because despite being young, despite being an unwed single mother, she still stood up for what she believed. And I believe that's something that we can gain from her as younger people, is that despite what other people might think, despite if you're young, if you're a single parent, or maybe you don't have a college degree, or maybe you went a different way, you can still stand up for what you believe on your pursuit of the good life. You can still go and be and still make an impact in the world.
So that's crazy, because I that was the first time I ever obviously heard of that. So when you told me that, I was like, wait, she did it on the same year that Rosa Parks did it. She did the exact same thing. But because I got a baby and I'm 16, I'm not a good picture of the music. And so that's crazy, because, back then, unfortunately, kind of now it's about image too, but it's crazy to think that they were like strategic like that, and thinking that, okay, this one might get shot down. They might be like, okay, we can't rock with her because she out there in the streets, she's a a whore, or she's this and that. So they could attach so many names to her. So that's crazy. But I think the most interesting thing about that story, what we don't see today, is that she was still a part of Rosa going through.
Yes.
So even though that, even though I was the first to do it and first to get punished, and so instead of me being out front, I'm gonna go support Rosa for the greater good of the community and for, I guess, the black nation at the time.
Right. So. Because she was, and I'll have to go back and look, but I think she was a part of the legal suit that went forth, and I think her name was mentioned a part of that suit. So even though she wasn't the image or wasn't the person who we immediately think about, like you said, I do think it's cool that she was still supporting the movement.
Why don't you think people do that today?
Huh?
Why don't you think people do that today?
Do what today?
Like, they feel the need to have their stuff, like it's them out front. Like, I'm the one who started this. Yeah. I'm the one who started it first. I'm the one who's the original person who did this. So I should be the one who's out front. You do you, we gonna do us over here, and we gonna do it. Whoever get done first, wins or whatever. Well, no, she didn't have that. That crab in a bucket mentality. I don't think it had been developed yet. in the community. So like, what do you think? I'm curious to like, if she was still alive today, I'm curious to like ask her like, what made you like still want to support it?
I mean, just me personally, like thinking about that, I think if I were her, I think it's the idea of doing this for the greater good. So knowing that, okay, even though I might not be the one who is going to be the face of this movement, what I am doing is still helping the movement. Right. And so regardless of if you all see me in the forefront or I'm in the back, I'm still helping push this forward. And so I think that might be why, I wish I could have a conversation with her as well and ask her like, hey, like, how did you feel about this? Like, what kept you going? Because I agree. I do believe that now, like, within our generation or just period, the way things are now, a lot of us want to be in the forefront. Like, we want to be the face of the movement. We want to, look at me. But I also have to say there are many people who, even though they're not in the forefront, they're still working. They're still trying to, especially with these last few years of, all the different movements that's going on. I'm not going to name them because I feel like I'm going to forget like the different movements, but you all see the news. We've dealt with a lot, police brutality, like all of it, right? There are many people who are still working and who we may not know their names, we may not see their face, but they're still working to push the movement.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that Black History moment.
You're welcome.
If you love that, we'll continue it on next week, and we'll do 3 more. So we'll try to make it good. And I think Sarah's the expert on this part, so I'll just lean up to her.
Yes, that comes from my education at the Jackson State University. We're about that life. And also, if you like these moments, please follow our Instagram page because we're going to do a Black History moment throughout the weeks.
Yep, pursuit_podcast. We're going to do at least 3 a week.
Yes.
And I think Sarah's definitely going to do it like outside the norm. So like everybody knows about Malcolm X and Martin. Yeah. But we're going to throw some curveballs at you about important people. So that's where we're going to start. So you ready to get into the podcast and this topic?
Yes, let's get into this today.
Okay, so what I wanted to kind of talk about in the spirit of kind of Black History Month, but also in terms of relationships too, because we do have Valentine's Day on the horizon. Yes. So I wanted to kind of, right. That's your favorite?
It's one of my favorites.
More than Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July?
It's like my
top 3. Okay. Interesting. I don't think it's my top 3.
It's in my top 3.
Okay. But we'll see. Okay, your opinion. But on the spirit of those things and kind of bringing the topic that kind of brings those two together, we want to talk about perseverance in the good life.
Yeah.
And so what I've noticed when you think about Black history, that's kind of what I think about when I think about the people of that era, which is like, the 1940s to the I'd say about 70s here, give or take.
Yeah, about 70.
And the people through that were just in a different sort of mindset. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I just got this house, like literally moved in. I hadn't even been here a whole year yet. You throw a bomb on my house, I don't know how I'm gonna react. And that was like happening on the reg, like you getting rocks thrown in your window, you getting bombs dropped on you. If you high up, you getting bombed, you getting harassed at school. It's just a whole lot of hell, really. Yeah, it's hell going on. And I think a lot of people that came through that era, those that are still alive, kind of look at the generations nowadays kind of as soft, or ain't no way you would have made it. And they kind of look down. So I'm kind of curious as to what has happened in that shift as far as that mentality. It's like, because, there are some radical people, I won't say radical. There are some people who believe that, integration was like the worst thing that ever happened for Black people. And I get the point, of course, where, when we were forced out, we had to make our own. We had to make our own business, Black Wall Street. Our own schools, our own everything. And then when we integrated, a lot of that kind of Well, not kind of. A lot of it did go away.
It did.
And that affects how we move and groove today. So I wanted to have a conversation kind of centered around that. So what are your thoughts, first of all?
As far as like the shift in like perseverance between the different generations?
Mm-hmm. Like what's happened with us? Is it social media? It's that dang social media that, that blames everything because they think technology is to blame for everything. So,
I think several things have happened that have been that shift. I think the main thing that has caused that shift is just the way that we look at racism in a sense. So like, I feel like racism itself has shifted from being very overt to very systematic now.
Yep.
And so back then, so like in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, like you had the people who, white only, black only, right? And you had to figure out a way to navigate that world, right? Mm-hmm. You had the people who would deliberately not hire you if you're black, right, or if you're this.
Whether you're qualified, whether you got your
regardless,
PhD,
right?
You got your law degree, any of that.
None of that. But when, laws became in place and things began to shift, I think for a while we got comfortable in a sense. Mm-hmm. And so like, I think our generations and our parents, I think when we started integrating and we started being like trying to merge our worlds, I think people just felt like there wasn't a need to really fight as much. Mm-hmm. It was almost as if I think people took on this persona of we have arrived. Mm. And so because we integrated, because they allow us in their schools, or they're allowing us to work, or they allow us to do these things, and it's not as overt as you throwing rocks at me while I'm walking down the street, or you're gonna get in trouble. I think we kind of developed this where we don't have to fight anymore, right? We've arrived to this place, not recognizing, I said we don't have to march anymore, right? And then on top of that, we got a black president too. Like, we have arrived, not really recognizing that while we are thinking we've arrived, while we're accepting these merging of our lives, the people who were in place, they made it more systematic. Right. They're passing these little laws, right? These practices, these underhanded things, and we don't even know what's going on. Like, we don't even know that we have to switch our fighting tactics too. They switched theirs. Mm-hmm. It went from we're gonna just be real overt and have white only, black only to let's put some laws in place. Let's split up these districts for these voting, right? Mm-hmm. So that only our people can get voted in. Not really so we happy that we get to vote.
Get the vote, period, yeah.
No, not even understanding that they gave us the right to vote, but they also split our districts up. Mm. So we're still focusing on just being happy to vote, that we're not even recognizing this other stuff that's going on.
Gotcha.
You see what I mean? And so I feel like we had to shift with it. And I think that's the difference, is that I don't think I don't think our parents or people really understood the shift that was happening. Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of where we are right now.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that the system has changed, and I think it's a system that has kind of taken the bite out of the bark.
Yeah.
And as far as not just the black community, but I think as far as people as well, because when you aren't raised to be a fighter or to be a person who perseveres and goes through things and fights through the adversity, who does no matter what. And I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, but how you're raised, affects your mindset and your shift and how you approach that. And so I think as millennials, okay, we are called soft, we're called this, we're called that. But I think it starts with, like we talked about, like with family, your exposure, and just becoming aware of the actual system that you were playing. So in the curriculums that we're doing, I won't drop the school, but in the curriculums that we're doing, I had a conversation with a young lady kind of about like her system, and she talks about how she wants to, go out there. She's thinking about taking a gap year instead of going straight into college. She wants to like work. She wants to get a car. Now she comes from, a poverty background, and her parents, she said, well, her mom is looking at her crazy because, oh, I don't think you should go off. I think you should just go here, stay here, maybe go to University of Memphis or Southwest, or just do this, da 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 da. And I had to kind of break it down for her, like, bro, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And she's like, I know this, but my mom is so overbearing, and she thinks that in order for me to be successful, I have to go to college. And I don't want to go to college because going to college is not going to make me like money right now. Yeah. And she said straight up, she said, I don't want to live in the dorms. I want to have my own apartment. I want a car and stuff like this. I said, that's great. You can have that, but recognize working full time and going to school full time, that's very stressful, and I would not recommend it. So if you're going to work full time, you're going to have to go to school part time, but also don't look at school as like an end all be all, because school is a system. The education market, you go to college, really, it's like I won't say an assembly line, but an assembly line that gets you a job, a higher paying job than, McDonald's, entry level, stuff like that. And so we had to have a conversation about basically kind of what that path was for her, but it starts with that home rearing and through that perseverance. Because if your family isn't in a place that's open, in a culture that perseveres through things, when situations happen, you see them persevere through things, you see them figure it out, you see them be flexible. It starts right there at home. So I'm curious as to what people are being taught at home. Like, are you seeing people not persevere? Are you seeing them be complacent with their own type of situation? So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that your family is where you learn those life skills that you need. And so, but I think that we have to learn how to know what to extract and what to keep. I mean, what to extract from that and what to leave. So like for me, for instance, I'm a first generation college student. And so even though, I was thrown out there, but even though my parents didn't go to school, I did see my parents persevere through things. And so I feel like I was able to take or see them get through some really hard times and see them, come out on the other side. And I was able to take that skill with me when I was faced with hard times. I may not have been able to talk about certain things with them because they just didn't know, but I was able to adopt that for myself to be a hard worker. Right. And so I think that oftentimes we kind of miss those things in a sense. So because it doesn't look like what we're doing or what we're trying to do, we can miss the lessons that our families can teach us. And I think that can be, I think that's what changes or what has affected a lot of people. We miss what's right there because it doesn't look like what we're trying to do. Or we may take their questioning as them questioning us as discouragement versus using that as like a teaching moment. Right. And saying like, okay, like I know you did this, but this is what I'm trying to do. And this is why I'm trying to do it. Versus don't nobody want to support me. Don't nobody want to do this. I think of it as a teaching moment. Like it may not be what you think, but I can still be successful here. Right. So.
I mean, the crazy part is that parents don't want to hear that from their children. They want their children to have the teaching mode, but they don't want to teach. They're going to want to learn from their kids when it's something different from what they do. But so let's back it up for the people, because you had parents that persevered. I had parents that persevered. That's great, but not everybody had parents that persevered.
That's true.
Some parents literally are degrading. As I'm learning in the mental health world, they are abusive, that are downgrading, downtrodden, and then the whole community and then the whole people around them, their neighbor over here are doing the same thing across the street, and everybody's just kind of doing the same thing. So for you guys who come from that background, who haven't had that level of perseverance in your life, or people emulating perseverance, honestly, I'd have to tell you to go out and seek it. because there are people out there. Now, you might have to pay. You might have to get a coach to work with you one-on-one. And I'm not talking about a necessarily athletic coach, but like maybe a life coach, a business coach, somebody who's done what you're trying to do or done what you're aspiring to do. You got to link up with them so that they can give you they can show you, not only show you the way, but also give you that kick in the pants that you need to push through it. Like, no, you're talented. You need to push through it. You don't need to give up, because if you were by yourself, a lot of us give up.
I agree. We do give up. I mean, I think because we live in an age of like media and social media, it's so easy to find somebody or something that can motivate you to go do those things, right? Like you can find like a good motivational Instagram page or a podcast that can help you just if you're not able to really get like some one-on-one time with another person.
Right. There's so much free content. Like you can learn so much at YouTube University off the rip, but you can also connect with so many different people too. If you ain't got a gym, if you ain't like let's say you want to get your health and fitness together, but you ain't got, time for a gym, you ain't got money for a gym, you can go to YouTube University and look up hundreds upon thousands of videos of home workouts that you can do in your living room, in your dorm room, in your whatever your situation is. But I think it's a mindset though.
It is.
And I see this often with my clients, and I think, and this is the reason why I really don't want to, like, I'll work with them, but they're not my favorite. Addiction clients aren't my favorite, because it takes like for consistent and long lasting change to happen. Like really, and this is all across all therapies, but you got to come to the level of, I'm sick and tired of being this way, sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I have a motivating thing, or something has happened, or some motivating force that's reminding me, that's pushing me to go through this pain, to go through this experience, this detox, whatever the case may be. And with specifically addiction clients, I recognize that it's like your biology, your brain patterns, all this, because it's a whole lot of like biological factors that are contributing and going against your will and perseverance. So that's why I really don't care for work with addiction. I'll work with them, but you got to have an extreme level of determination and perseverance to go through that process. Because it's not an easy process, because any therapy is not an easy process, but specifically with addiction, you got to change, who you hang around. You got to change your habits. You might have to lose friends. You got to, look at diet. You got to go through detox. You got to maintain detox, where everybody else is in a world where, that you drink, you do this, you do that, you smoke, you go hang out, smoke cigarettes, all this, like whatever your addiction is, you gotta change, you gotta completely change your lifestyle around it, because oftentimes your lifestyle is centered around that. And so to persevere through that, you gotta start with the level of, okay, I'm ready to persevere. And I don't think a lot of people outside of, addiction aside, I think a lot of people just haven't gotten to that place where, okay, I'm ready to persevere through this gig. I'm ready to persevere. I'm ready to be uncomfortable for a little while, to work a second job or look for a second job or move to a different state, away from my family, away from my friends. I am not willing to persevere and do those things. I'm not willing to not go to Cabo with my friends who are planning to go, because I don't want to be left out. FOMO. True. I don't want to miss out. I don't want to be left out. Instead of saving this money so that I can upgrade my car, upgrade my life, invest, or do what I need to do that. And I think a lot of people just haven't gotten to that point. So I really think somebody needs to know that you need to get to that point and self-assess where you are on that perseverance kind of factor.
Yeah, I agree with you. When you were talking about people who have addiction and how it's a literal lifestyle change you have to make. It just made me think about just things in general. So like, if I say, for instance, you want to lose weight, you have to do a lifestyle change for that to last, right? If you want to make a career change, if you want to just do several things, I think that I agree with you that I think that people, we think we want to do those things, but when we start to think about the work we have to do, that's when we're like, well, do I really need to do that? Like, do I really need to lose 50 pounds?
Right. And that's why the why is the fuel that will persevere you through that. Because what is your why? Because if you want to lose weight, what's the why? Did you just have a heart attack?
True.
Do you want to be there? Like I've heard somebody, Ed Milet said that the reason he works out every day is because when he was like younger, a doctor told him, do you want to walk your daughter down the aisle one day? Wow. Because if you don't make a lifestyle change right now, you're not going to make it to there.
So it's like a matter of life and death.
So it was like a matter of life and death. And that's what I'm saying. What
is your why?
Yeah, what is your why that's going to fuel your perseverance through that? Yeah. So if it is fitness, you know, your why needs to be not because
you want to look good.
You want to look good on Instagram. You want to get a man. You want to do this. You know what is it? Like I know one of my family members who wants to be an actor. One day she told me, like, you know, I know, like I'm good. Like I know the talent that I have, but I know my weight can literally be the difference between me getting a guest star role and the main role. And I want to be the main role, so I got to get it together. Yeah. So like, I mean, that's something that can fuel her to continue down her fitness and lifestyle, to fuel the lifestyle change. That's why I'm eating kale. That's why I'm eating arugula, spinach. That's why I'm drinking these shakes, because I want to do this so that I can get this. And I think a lot of people got to get to that point.
Right. So that makes me think about just different types of motivation. So like intrinsic and extrinsic. And so like intrinsic motivation.
Break it down.
That's I'm going to use my degree. So intrinsic motivation is just motivation that comes from within. So that's going to be like your hope, right? That's your decision, whatever it is. So giving back to the example of the guy who you said the doctor asked him, you know, does he want to walk his daughter down the aisle, right? Probably deep inside, he's probably like from the day she was born, he probably thought about like, look, like I see my daughter's life. Right. I want to be there. I want to be a part of those moments. And so his desire to be here, to be living, is probably was something that came from within. Right. Like, I want to live. Like, that's a really big intrinsic motivation. Right. But then you think about extrinsic motivation, which is motivation that's like comes from outside sources. Right. And so the example of that would be like, so if I'm trying to lose weight, and I really want to get some likes on Instagram, those likes are extrinsic motivators. And what happens is, at some point, you're just going to be like, you know what, I don't care if people like, right? And so you lose that. It's harder to stay motivated when it's coming from strictly extrinsic motivators, right? If it's strictly for somebody else, because I've heard of people who they'll do things for other people. So like, I'm going to lose this weight because I want this guy to like me, or I'm going to go get this job. Me, for instance, a good example, me wanting to be a lawyer came from some extrinsic places because my family thought this would be great. I was told I was smart. This is what you should do. Yep. But when I got there, I recognized that I wasn't passionate about this. Yep. You weren't intrinsically motivated. I wasn't intrinsically motivated to be here. I didn't have the will, the drive, the hope, nothing. That's good. To do this, right? And so when we're thinking about persevering and when we're thinking about these journeys that we're on and these goals we're trying to reach, we need to really think about what is motivating you to get there, because that is going to impact whether you stick through the hard parts, right? Whether you keep going when you feel this discouragement around you, right? What if the people who were your intrinsic motivators turn on you? Right. Now all of a sudden, the people who were your cheerleaders and motivating you to get there, now they're questioning your decisions. Are you gonna keep going? You know, if it's something that you really want and it's coming from within, yeah, you'll go. But if you didn't have the drive on your own in the first place, when the people who were pumping you up decide to tear you down.
Or when they start going through things and they can't.
And they can't pump you up, right? They can't be there. Then that's going to impact what you do.
Right. Wow.
So we have to know where our motivation is coming from.
Right. That fuels the perseverance. Is it coming from within or is it coming from social media?
Right.
Is it coming from
your family?
Is it coming from your drive to be a better person?
Right.
Or is it coming from wanting to impress others?
Right.
Is it coming from what you want to do with your life or is it coming from what your family wants you to do with your life?
Exactly.
And that's wow.
Right, because taking it back to our last episode, thinking about Kobe Bryant, I think he's a really good example of somebody who's intrinsically motivated. Like when you talked about him saying that he basically practiced 3 times a day, he practiced by himself, practiced with his teammates, and then practiced again. Like you got to be intrinsically motivated to do that.
Right.
You know, like his desire to literally be the best, that is very admirable.
Right.
I mean, of course you're gonna get the accolades, but he loved the game so
like
much.
It started with intrinsic motivation, not somebody saying, "Son, I want you to be go play basketball." Even though his father did play professionally, it didn't come from him wanting to be a basketball player. It came from him wanting to be the best. And I think it's okay to have a balance between intrinsic and extrinsic, because I think. Good. I mean, in the case of Kobe, in an interview that I saw before, was I don't want to say this is petty, but this is a good way to get you motivated. When he was in his teens, like so before he was 17 and blew up, he said like 2 years before that nobody knew who he was. Yeah. And so the fact that it was like top like 200 in the state or like top whatever the case may be, he was nowhere on the list. So he was pissed. So he was extrinsically motivated because of the list and the factors that everybody else. And he said that was his kill list now. Like every time I play somebody from this list, I am going to demolish them. So then that turned into intrinsic motivation. Yeah. So you can turn extrinsic into intrinsic. I think it's just about your perspective in doing that. But then I think a lot of people start with maybe extrinsic. Yeah. So I think people who start with extrinsic, they start with something they see, something that, they hear, something can do that. But then it has to turn intrinsic to be long lasting. It does. And to fuel through the adversity, to wake up at certain time, to practice the same thing over and over and over, to save money over and over, to not go out to eat every day for a month straight so that you can save money for your investment of your car, your phone, your classes, your whatever it is, it has turned intrinsic for you to become that. So let's start there. What is your intrinsic motivation and what can you do externally to keep it moving? Because I think they have to kind of somewhat align. Because everybody wants to look good. Everybody wants, in terms of fitness, everybody wants to look good, but do you want to also feel good too? Exactly. So do you want to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you want to be there to walk your children down the aisle, to be at their college graduations, to be all there for the accolades? What is your intrinsic motivation, but also extrinsic motivations to help you along the way too? Yeah, they do. Like I agree. It's okay to have both. Mm-hmm. It's just when you allow the extrinsic to overpower the intrinsic, it's going to be harder to reach those goals because anything can change. Anything outside, can change. Anything can change outside. But what you believe on the inside, like what you've made up in your mind, what you desire, that's what you hold on to. Because I'm going to be really honest with you all. Going through the dissertation process, if you're not familiar with that, it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And literally what got me through on some days was the fact that it was something that I wanted to do and I believed it. Like, this is my goal. Like, I have to get this. Yep. And that's what got me through. It wasn't what everybody else was saying. It wasn't those things. It was like literally my determination and my desire. Like that was the hope that I held on to. Right. Because sometimes when you're going through things that are difficult, you have to find that hope. Like, it has to be something inside of you.
that you're going to hold on to that's going to remind you why you're doing this.
Right.
If I solely relied on like the motivation from other people, I would not have graduated when I did.
Facts.
Would not have. And that is just the honest truth. Because a few months before my look process started, I had some people who was like, well, you sure you gonna do this?
Oh, no.
You sure you can't? Like, and these are like key people. And I had to get to this place where I was like, you know what?
Okay.
I'm just gonna have to do this myself.
No, you just said something there. When your extrinsic motivation goes south.
Yeah.
So wow, you not only do you gotta look at where your motivation is coming from, but you also gotta look at the intentions behind it and where the positive and negative become around it. Because guys, I don't think you caught that. What she said was she had the intrinsic motivation. That was good. She had to do this. That's what ultimately pushed her through. But if she had listened to her extrinsic motivators, her friends who are not going through this process, who are not day-to-day grinding with her, because they came at the negative, she had to say, okay, you know what? You got to go. I got to move some people in the life who's going to keep me, who are in line with my intrinsic motivation.
Right. And it wasn't even necessarily like negatives. It was like, it was their reality. So that's the piece you have to remember. Sometimes people will motivate you to the best of their abilities and to the ways in which they view your situation. And so not everybody doesn't look at your situation or what you have to do the same way that you do. And so coming from their perspective, from what they have done, from what they're trying to do, that's kind of the way they're going to come at you when it comes to just motivation or just even conversations. Because to them, they probably didn't feel like they were being negative. But to me, this is what I'm trying to do.
That was their reality.
That, like, I didn't need that right now.
Right.
Like,
your reality ain't my reality.
Your reality ain't my reality. So for you, this might be something that, you might not be able to make this through. But I knew me. I knew like, hey, I can get this done. But if I would have just relied on that,
your level of perseverance is not my level.
Right. Your level is not my level. Wow. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so I don't want anybody to say, no, there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to know what your level is and rock with your level.
Boom.
And don't allow people who has a different level influence what you're trying to do.
Right. Ooh. Or you need somebody who has a bigger motivation than what you got.
Or you can have somebody who has a bigger one.
Who's been through what you've been through, who
can see above it.
Who can see above it, who sees the potential in you.
Yeah.
And gonna tell you and not gonna let you quit.
Right. You need those people too.
That's a bar right there. Okay. Okay, so I want to switch gears. Because I think that's some of y'all needed that. So I think we're going to switch gears in terms of perseverance in relationships.
Okay.
So having that so it's a little different because I think it can be like a similar mindset, intrinsic versus extrinsic. In relationships. But it has to be in a different necessarily arena.
How so?
So for example, what are your intrinsic and extrinsic motivators for being in a relationship, staying in a relationship, or leaving a relationship? So that's those things are different kind of models. Yeah. So for example, with me, obviously, as I've talked about before, my intrinsic motivation was to be the first person in 3 generations who stayed married. Okay. Who not only got married, but also stayed married. So that was an intrinsic motivator for me to not just have 17 girlfriends before So be intentional and be strategic about who I'm connected with, because I take relationships seriously. So I'm not going to just pick, just somebody just because they look good, we vibe cool. No, I'm looking for something deeper. Even though extrinsically, I like the way you look, I need to know that intrinsically we're connected. So that's, before. And then staying in a relationship, what is your intrinsic? Like I said, for me, again, is divorce. I don't want to get divorced. My mother and father have been divorced. Both of their parents have been divorced. And I think the ones before them, they stayed together. But it started with with both sides of the grandparents getting divorced. Then it got to my parents. They're divorced. So I stopped it here. So I was like, we're not going to have a chain of this. Yeah. This generational curse is going to be broken. So for me, that was an intrinsic motivation that started, and is the bottom line that pushes me through to persevere through whatever relationship issues that I may experience. But other people don't have that. No. And they don't look at that lens that way as far as relationships. But also, I also know that moving along the spectrum is leaving a relationship. I know that, and my wife knows this too, and this is the same thing for her too. Infidelity is a no for us. Okay. That's an intrinsic for us, that once infidelity happens, that's just it. That's kind of just where we kind of get off at this point in our relationship right now. And I mean, of course, some of you have kind of been through that, and it can be, I've gone through that. But for me and my wife, me and my house.
You and your house.
Me and my house, infidelity is where we kind of get off here.
Okay.
And that's an intrinsic motivator for us. So with that being the intrinsic motivator, I make sure not to put myself in a position to be unfaithful and, not being out past a certain time, not necessarily limiting, but being aware when I'm with single friends.
Right.
Obviously, their motivations are different. Their internal motivations are different from mine.
Right.
So knowing that can help you navigate that in your relationships. But I know I just said, a whole lot of transition and stuff like that. But let's back it up. Yes. For those who are, either single or, interested in somebody or pre-dating somebody, what level do you know, what do you have to know to persevere with somebody? Well, even know if somebody is worth persevering through.
Well, I think you said something that I think a lot of people kind of miss, or we don't think about when you are looking for a relationship. You talked about how both you and your wife had that same intrinsic motivation. So like you both believe that, okay, infidelity, that's just it. Mm-hmm. But that means that you all have had a conversation and you all have talked about, y'all made a common goal of, we're going to get married. This is what we're going to work towards. This is what's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. I think oftentimes we don't have that conversation of what it is we're trying to do. So you have one person who's like, okay, I want to date because I want to get married. You have one person that's like, I just want to just be out here.
I'm kicking it.
Mm-hmm. But then we try to make the other person meet that goal or be that person. Mm-hmm. And so I really feel like that, well, you need to have a conversation, and you need to know what you want. Mm-hmm. So you need to know, okay, what is my goal with this? What am I working towards? And you need to have that conversation with the person you're trying to do that with. Right. Because y'all could be on two different paths. And, but you don't figure out y'all on two different paths until it's 6 months down the line, Funny story. I once, I don't even know what I was doing. I once was talking to this guy, called myself dating him, and we were having fun. And then when it got time to be serious, realized that they're saying on the same, we're on the same page. Mm-hmm. We weren't even on the same book. He was in one book, I was in another book.
Okay. So help somebody out. What was something that was okay, wait, hold on. Wait, we not on the same book, let alone the same page. What example? Obviously, don't do something. Put yourself on.
No, I'll give an example. So, just our views on marriage, for one.
Okay.
Our views on marriage. Yeah. Our views on marriage. So for me, marriage is a goal that I would like to accomplish. I come from a long line of long marriages. So my grandparents, my father's parents, they've been married almost 60 years. My parents, shout out to my mom, my daddy, they celebrate 31 years on Monday. And so growing up in that environment, I've always pictured myself as being married. That is something that I aspire for. Him, it's I don't know what happened in his family life, but for every good reason I had to get married, he had a bad reason. Ooh. And so his ideal of a long-term relationship was Oprah and Stedman. Like I love Oprah. I love Auntie Oprah. Like if I ever meet her, I would like that's just one of my dreams. Mm-hmm. But that was his.
They are not married.
They're not married. Like her and Stedman have been together almost like 30 some years.
However long they've been.
And they're not married. And he was perfectly fine with it. Like he thought I was crazy for wanting something other than that. Mm-hmm. And that was just that was just like one. I mean, of course, it was other things, but that was just one of those things where it's like we weren't even in the same book. You know, so there's no way we could be motivated together because he going this way, I'm going that way.
Wow. Okay. So what you're saying is before I even get committed to this person, you got to look at how they view their perspective on the same level of perseverance. So if I'm trying to be, you know, I'm trying to be a lawyer. Okay. And I know I want to be perseverance. I know I want to do this, and this. And they just trying to kick it. They trying to, you know, okay, let me just get a job. Let me just work this 9 to 5. Let me go back home to my, you know, boonies town, whatever the case may be. Yeah. I don't really want to move. And then they start imposing that on you. Yeah. Then you know, okay, that's when I need to get off.
Yes. Like honestly, truthfully, so for one, you need to ask yourself if this person is worth it. So like if y'all just having fun, y'all just kicking it, okay, cool. You don't even have to have this conversation. Mm-hmm. But if you have been spending time with this person and you like this person and you're starting to like kind of picture your life with them, you need to start having conversations. Because I agree with you. If you're somebody who feels like, okay, I have these goals I'm trying to reach in my career. I'm trying to be like CEO by like 40, whatever. Mm-hmm. The person that you're connected to, they're either going to help you or they're going to stop you. Yep. And so if that person does not have that same type of mindset,
or at least is willing to support you, mm-hmm.
It's not going, it's just not going to work out. It's not going to work out because you're going to start being resentful. Like they're going to be complaining. Like it's just too, like you shouldn't have to fight the person that you with at home. You already got to fight the world. Right. You know, and so that's the conversation you need to have. But that's only if you feel like something can come out of being with this person.
Right. Wow. Okay. So let's transition into what does perseverance look like when you're in a relationship. So I'm gonna give you an example. So when me and my wife first got together, we had to persevere through finances. Okay. Because when she graduated, she had to wait. So for those of y'all who don't know, my wife is from the great country of the Bahamas. And so she's, you know, wearing palm trees, all that good stuff. But the thing is, when you graduate, you have to get a work visa. Okay. And so for her particular work visa, it's very restricted to what you majored in. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, she majored in biology. At the time, wanted to be an MD, wanted to be a medical doctor. But those jobs were what she only could, those were basically jobs associated with that was the only thing she could get. She can't get, you know, McDonald's, you know, when people say, oh, you can just get any job. No, she couldn't get that because she had to get the limitations of her visa, work visa, was only for this field of jobs. And the thing about jobs like that, they wanted like a certain level of experience. Of course. They wanted a certain level of, you know, you need to be certified in this. You got to be, not only go to school, but you need to be certified in this, licensed in this, boom, 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 like doing this. And so that process was difficult. And it lasted, I say, till she got like a job that she actually was like stable at and good and making consistent money. So if she moved here to Memphis in, let's say, like September, no. She was here in like August, and her work visa didn't get approved until September. Oh wow! So even before we could even start that, you know, that's where, you know, it's already pinching. I'm well taking care of you. And then she started working consistently at this job, I think in May, June. So that was like a whole other year. So almost basically a whole another year of, okay, I'm gonna take care of it. We're gonna persevere together and all this good stuff. But you gotta make sure that person is worth persevering for. Right. In which case communication is key. of course, is the most common relationship advice in the world. But it's facts. You gotta communicate. You gotta have an understanding. You gotta do that. And how can you recognize that person is worth it? Because this person is still putting in some kind of effort and doing stuff. So even though I can't bring in money, I'll still cook.
Right.
I will cook so that when you come home from work and when you come home from a long day, I'll make sure that there's food here for you to eat. When, even though I ain't got money, when I get my tax refund, I'm gonna hold on to it. I'm gonna buy you a present for your birthday, what she did for me. I mean, I'm still gonna put in stuff to make sure we're still good. And so you got to give people, you ain't got to have it all together. And that's the thing I think a lot of people get hung up on, is getting with somebody who has it all together. Like for me, I come from a pattern of divorce. So if you look at me on paper in terms of that, this bro ain't set up to be married for a long time. But I'm willing to put in the work. I'm a whole therapist, so that means I'm forced to study, how family dynamics and relationships work. I'm studying how to help the dynamics. I'm learning how to express my emotions and come over the toxic masculinity mindset. I'm not doing what other men are doing. I'm putting in the work. So what that person is doing out, even though they might not have it all together, even though they're still figuring some things out, are they worth it with where they're at right now? Right. And I think a lot of people need to look at it that way, if that person is or is not worth pursuing that. Pre-married, we're talking about pre-married folks, not even looking at marriage or anything like that. What is this person doing? Are they worth it? Are their motivations aligned with yours? Right. Are they willing to support you in your motivations? And are you willing to support them in their motivations? Right. Because it's tough. Because Sparkle had to come to this conclusion. I'm gonna just wait till you done, till you done with school, and then because we both like grad school budget, we made it work, right, but it ain't nice. Yeah. It ain't nice. So she worked full time. So she was working full time, and I was finishing up grad school, and now we're in the transition of switching so that she can go and pursue what she wants to do. So. But like you said, it started with that conversation. Right. Like thinking, okay, I don't want to be an MD no more. I want to do this. But to do this, because I know where we're at right now, we gotta edit some things. We gotta talk about, we gotta shift and do things here. And that's the major thing is the partner willing to make that shift? Is the partner willing to get in the trenches and persevere through there? Are they willing to sign up for, okay, we ain't gonna be able to go out to eat, so let's go to Wendy's, get these 4 for 4s, pop into Netflix, and just enjoy each other's company. Yeah.
No, I agree with you on that. And while you were talking, it made me really think about my current relationship. He's probably watching and listening, but I tell people all the time that I don't think anybody else would have lasted with me through this last process. And so dissertation process? Yes, through my dissertation process. Mm-hmm. So me and my honey, we reconnected and started talking November of 2018. And so I was starting to begin the last leg of the process. So I think I had defended my proposal a few weeks after we had started talking, decided to be friends. Mm-hmm. And so we made it official in February of 2019.
Which is essentially the busiest time for you.
The busiest time for me. Yeah. I was in I kid you not, I was telling somebody yesterday that he had came to visit me for Valentine's Day. And literally I was because I knew he was coming, I had to get up at 5 a.m. to transcribe. Right. Because I knew he was coming, but I still had to get this stuff done. And so he literally saw me at some of my darkest places because I wasn't very pleasant during this time. And mind you, we're in a brand new relationship. We just started. And there were days where I wasn't nice. There were days where I couldn't even see the light. I I mean, that's the only way I can say. Like there were days where I couldn't even like see the light.
The motivation was low.
It was so low.
Uh-huh.
But he supported me. Like he supported me in so many ways. Because we're in a long distance relationship. So like he would stay up at night and just talk to me. He supported me financially, which I was not expecting because like I said, going through grad school, it's a lot. We were fresh, but like there were times where like he helped me and he offered to help me. And he gave me grace. He pointed me to the light when like the times where it was just so dark and I couldn't even, like there were times where I just couldn't even see God working. And like he was the one who was praying for me. Like he was the one who was encouraging me. Like he did a lot. And for him to take that on, I always thought was commendable because I don't know too many men who would do that. Like I don't know too many men who would have like said, okay, you know what? I see this moment in your life, right, but I know you're going to get past this. Right. And I want to, build this life with you. So I'm going to be here for you now. Right. I'm going to support you here. I'm going to, be there. And cause most guys, they really they want some of the attention too.
Some.
Most, but he was like, when I defended my dissertation, he was in the bag. Mm-hmm. Like he was in the bag. Like he legit, like he let me go through, like he supported me through this and he also let me shine.
Right.
And it didn't feel like a competition. Right. With him, because I've been in those positions where it felt like a competition, like you feel like you got to do what I'm doing, or you feel like you can't do what I'm doing, or those unhealthy things. But it wasn't like that with him. Mm-hmm. Like I got a PhD. A lot of men think that's just too much, and he was just like, that's facts. But he was like, hey, go do it. Mm-hmm. And even with like me on my job search, like. There are some guys who are like, oh, you got to get a job where I'm at, or you got to get, you got to come here. Mm-hmm. His whole thing is, you go do what's best for you. Like I'm here. We gonna make it work. Right. Like that's the one thing I can say I'm grateful for, because that was actually one of my apprehensions. Even with trying to be his friend, because I knew that I was getting ready to go through this transition in my life. And I was like, I think that was one of the things I prayed about. I was like, Lord, I don't even want to like be friends, because I'm trying to do this and I don't want to hurt him. I don't want to do all this stuff. But when I tell you, he's been so supportive through this, and he's just like, look, I know you put in all this work. I know this is what you're trying to do, but I want to be with you. And so if that means we got to go over here, that's fine. That's cool. Right. And I'm grateful for that, because I was like, oh, this is different. This is different, but it hit different. But we had to have that conversation, right? We're both motivated on this goal of like marriage being our ultimate goal. Right. And so, if he made the decision like that, if this is what I'm trying to do, I'm gonna support you through this. I'm gonna help you through this. I'm gonna persevere through this with you, right? Because for him, he looked at it as this is just a small fraction of time, right? Like, this isn't how it's going to always be, so I can grace her here. Mm-hmm. And that helped. Facts. Like, helped.
And something that I tell people all the time, like when they're in the dating phase and they're trying to transition into the engagement/marriage phase, I always tell people to take your time and be observant, because different people act different in different seasons. Yep. And people, and the thing is, we all act different in different seasons. We do. That's life. And you got to see how this person responds in whatever season they're in. And I mean, not only like physical seasons, like hot, cold, winter, all that good stuff. Because I mean, Sparkle, she a different person in the winter, because the Bahamas ain't got winter. So I mean, she to her, like the winter time is not nice to her. Yeah. But knowing how a person acts when I ain't got no job. Yeah. Knowing how a person acts when I got the stress of my dissertation coming up. How does a person act when everybody in my family acting crazy? Yeah. How does this person act when things are not going correctly? Do you start swinging? Do you start fighting? Do you start taking it out on this person? Does this person support you? Does this person go in there? Does this person isolate themselves?
Yep.
Does this person like block everybody else, stops responding to text messages, listens to Adele sad music all day, every day, go through a season of don't hear from them for 3 weeks? We've all been there.
Yeah.
How does this person act through these changing of the seasons? Because we're gonna go through a season of challenges.
Yeah.
But how does this person persevere or not persevere? And is this person willing to include me along that ride?
Or do I even want to be along for the journey?
Do I want to be along for that journey?
Because I think that's the thing that we have to ask ourselves, because one thing is nobody's perfect. We all have flaws. Mm-hmm. But you have to ask, like, do I want to see this person at their worst?
Do I want to be with the drug dealer because they got money, but also I gotta go visit them in prison?
Right.
Or I gotta hide the drug.
I gotta be your trap queen. Like,
I gotta be the trap queen.
Like, that's the conversation you have to ask yourself.
Yep. Yourself. Yes.
Yourself.
Correct.
Because, and I'm pretty sure Ken will tell y'all that, like, he used to have this perception of me as, like, it's just so funny. Like, I think he almost kind of put me on, like, this pedestal for years. Like, I just was perfect and all these things. But he got to see the flaw Sarah. Like, he got to see Sarah Lee. Because he got to see the person that don't got her cape on, that's not saving everybody else. Like, and that's the person everybody doesn't get to see. And let him tell her he love her. Probably more than the cape. Because he was like, she's real.
Right.
And for me, that was freeing for me that he chose to, like, love me through that.
Right.
And to see me through that. And not expect me to have my cape on when I can't even see the light.
Yep. Wow.
And so you have to ask yourself, are you willing to see this person when they don't have their cape on?
The ugly side.
The ugly.
You too busy trying to be with Superman. You got to be with Clark.
Right.
How is Clark through the perseverance?
Yes.
Superman gonna perform. Superman who got the money, who got the car, who got the house, who got everything, who got it going on. You and Superman gonna be all right, and Superwoman. You and Superman gonna be all right. But what about when adversity hits?
Yep.
Through that person's adversity, what does that person do will determine if that person is worth persevering with.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key point that I think a lot of us who are still pre-married, we don't want to look at that. We kind of avoid having that conversation because we don't really like when we start paying attention to things like that. Does this person, when this person always just gets mad when, things don't go their way, they just shut down, they slam the door, they start throwing things at you, but because the sex is good or because whatever the case may be, you just,
got the image in your head
you got this image of what you want, you make excuses.
Yeah. And
you got to stop making excuses if this person is not the co-pilot that you need to persevere through your future that you're trying to get to.
Is that plane is going? Well, no, I'm not gonna say that. It's going to fall. It's going to fail. Mm-hmm. It's going to fail. If you make excuses for somebody and you overlook those key things, whatever it is y'all trying to do, it is not going to succeed. Right. Because eventually somebody's going to want to get off, or somebody's going to want to go somewhere else. And it just doesn't end pretty. Right.
And that's facts. And so that will kind of sustain you through, that will help you determine if you should get married or not, or even think about getting married to this person when they do pop the ring or whatever the case may be. And I think if you can maintain that same spirit of, what does this person need? What do I need? That'll sustain you pretty much through your marriage. But what about when it's time to end this relationship? Like when it's time to either break up or get a divorce, what is it that I should know about this person that, okay, this is not what's up?
I think that you said something really good when you talked about, like, just taking it back to the whole communication, like knowing what your deal breakers are, knowing, so like for you guys, you all made the decision that if infidelity happens, that's it. Mm-hmm. Right? There are some people who, like, divorce is not an option. And so you have to have that conversation of, okay, what's the worst that can happen that'll make you not want to be here? You know, and is this something that we can agree on? Or is this something that we can work out? I think it just comes back to having that conversation. Like, you need to know for yourself what you're willing to put up with and not put up with.
Right.
And once you have that, then you can have the conversation with the person that you're with, that this is what I'm standing for, this is what I'm not standing for, and these are the options. But I think what happens is we don't really know what it is that is a deal breaker or something. We just kind of go along with some stuff, and then it's like after the fact, it's like, oh yeah, that's what happened. But I think you have to know for yourself what your deal breakers are, and you have to have that conversation if there's something. Because for some people, like I said, divorce isn't an option. Like, once we marry, we marry. We just got to work it out.
Yeah, that's easy. That's fine and dandy until, and I think this is kind of like what happens in a lot of when you see like long-term relationships suddenly like go down, is when one or both of the people change.
Yeah.
And the thing is, change is inevitable.
Yeah.
You are physically, even biologically, you're not the same person you were 8 years ago.
Of course
Your cellular makeup is completely different from, I might think it is like 8 years or something like that. But
yeah, it does.
When you do change, am I willing to persevere with this version of this person? Because the thing is, when a person decides to change or something has happened to change how this person view things, that whether it changes their internal motivation or external motivation, when that does change, am I willing to change with this person? Like, if I want to get out the hood, like if we've been trap queen, trap king, you know, we've been doing things, and we say, you know what?
We don't want to do this no more.
I don't want to do this no more. I'm tired of getting shot up. I'm tired of my house getting shot up. I'm tired of having to hide for my son, for my daughters, for all this, whatever changes. When the other person is not willing to change, I also think that's also factor in, like, knowing when okay, they're not willing to go through me on this journey of perseverance no more. They're not willing to persevere through this version of the good life no more. And it ain't got to be extreme as obviously trap king, trap queen. If it is, it could be career change. It could be, retiring early and pursuing your business. It could be going back to school. Because not everybody got college degrees. So if one person, they the breadwinner, they got all this, they got all that, and this other person been a stay-at-home parent, and they decide, okay, yeah, I want to get my own now. I want to start my business. I want to go to a 2-year program. I want to do this. Yeah. And you like, wait a minute.
What's going on?
Now I got to change what I'm doing here. And so I think that is a very thing that I think people look at or overlook, is that when change does happen, am I willing to persevere with this version of this person?
Yeah, I agree.
And so I think, and I'm thinking about a conversation that I had earlier this week about, like, so when, let's say these two people, I'm gonna give a synopsis. Okay. These two people had a certain lifestyle. Okay. This person said, I don't want to live this lifestyle no more. I want to take a step back. Well, this person said, okay, well, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing over here. Yeah. And because of that, now, like, the distance has happened, whereas this person has, grown in their career because they don't want to live this lifestyle no more. And this person has just continued in that. Now this person is resenting this person and hasn't achieved as much. And so, like, this one decision for this person, I'm going to step back so that I can elevate this. We have children, we have this. Even though we both, at first, when we got together, it was cool. We then got married. All right, yeah, we got, okay, now I want to change it up. Yeah. I don't want to do that no more. And that's tough. When okay, this is where I get off. Yeah. That's a tough place to be at, but you also got to look at, it's unfortunate, but you got to look at what's Well, it's not unfortunate, but you got to look at what's best for you and what is good for your circumstances in your perseverance to the good life. And that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. And it's unfortunate, but you can't make somebody be okay. You just can't make somebody get in the car and go off into what direction that you're trying. They have to be willing to get in the car, but also you should have that conversation with them. Like, look,
this is what I'm trying to do.
This is what I'm trying to do. That means things are going to be different. How can we make this work?
Yeah, that's what I think. I agree. I think you have to communicate in every stage and every level with everything. I agree with you that you can't make somebody get in the car with you. But at the same time, you can't buy the car and expect them to get in and they don't know that you bought the car.
Hello.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if we have made this decision to do life together, we have said our vows before God and my mama and your mama and our families. If something's going on, if there's a change that needs to happen with you, then we need to have that conversation. Like don't wait until you quit to be like, oh, I quit my job and I'm finna go start a farm. No. You need to tell me when you first had that thought in your mind that you want to quit and start a farm so that we could talk about this, so we can make this a plan, so we can make sure that we're going in the same direction. I think the biggest mistake that people do is they get these thoughts and they don't talk about it. But then they expect the other person just to go along with it. No, that doesn't work.
Right.
It's gonna cause too much tension.
And even when like situations like that are forced upon you, like you get fired.
You do. You can't get
you
fired.
get fired, you lose your job, your job shuts down, your whole situation like
that can happen.
Changes, and it's forced upon you. Like you're forced to change. Like you get a disease, you get cancer, you get you get a lifestyle disease like MS, you get the flu, or you get something that forces you to change something. And like for example, if I had to give up meat, like because of my health or whatever, I know me and Sparkle have to have a conversation because she loved meat. I love meat too. But if I couldn't eat meat no more, we would have to work something out.
Right.
Because that's a hard change. And knowing that when the forces change do come, be able to talk about it so that you can continue to persevere together. Because it's unfortunate when you've been together for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and then all of a sudden, because of one season of change that you can't work through, you got to end it. So I would prefer you not to end it. I would prefer you to persevere and keep going through on your pursuit of the good life, but both people got to be willing to get in that boat.
I agree. And go to counseling. I'm just going to put that out there.
Listen.
Just go talk to somebody.
Listen, not everybody want to go. Unfortunately, not everyone want to go to counseling.
I know.
But it takes two to tango.
It does.
I will say that if you are like that husband, that wife, that spouse that is like, okay, yeah, we need to go to counseling, but the other spouse isn't, what I'd say probably is the best strategy is to you go to counseling first.
Yeah. And
then that will kind of maybe smooth things over through that transition. Instead of saying we need to go, saying I'll go, I'm getting a lot out of it, I would like for both of us to go, and then maybe stuff like that. Or even if you're like, I don't need counseling, but they definitely need counseling, that's definitely the better. Then you have the we approach instead of the you approach.
Yeah.
We versus you. Makes sense? Cool. But, okay. You got anything else as far as perseverance?
No.
In the relationships?
I think we kind of covered a lot of good stuff today.
Okay.
With the whole perseverance. I mean, I'm going to just always go back to just communicate. Mm-hmm. Just communicate whatever it is, whether you're trying to date, want to get engaged, or married.
Any phase that you're at.
Any phase.
Communicate.
Over communicate.
Right. Because that communication is what's going to make the difference in whether you want to continue persevering with this person through dating, through engagement, through marriage. hopefully so you can avoid divorce.
Right.
So it's crazy out here. But do me a favor, comment your favorite moment or like what kind of gem of this podcast really stuck out to you. Whether it was, the previous side when we were talking about, career and, persevering through intrinsic, extrinsic motivation. She used her PhD today. Or whether it's persevering through relationships. Also, do me a favor and follow the podcast IG page. Pursuit_podcast. We will be posting different Black History facts. We'll be posting, of course, stuff for here. We'll be posting upcoming guests. Yes, we are bringing guests on here. I think we're looking at March. We're going to try to, I personally would like to try to do at least once a month, have a guest. But we'll work it out. But when we do have a guest, we'll definitely post it there first.
Go ahead.
And also, if you have any questions that you would like for us to answer, please feel free to DM us on Instagram. That's pursuit_podcast.
Yep.
And we will gladly take your questions, or you can comment on any of our different sites. And we'll gladly answer your questions that you have.
Facts. Go subscribe to us on iTunes, follow us on Spotify, do all those things so that you get every episode as it comes out. Also, give us that 5 stars. 5 stars, because we've been dropping that fire lately. And this podcast and the previous podcast before that, and the first, it's just been fire. It's been some great stuff. So give us those 5 stars so that we can move up in the charts, so that more people can find out about us, get the help they need. I think that's it.
Yeah, and always like and share and pass this along to other people that you know.
Right. All right, guys. Well, until next time, keep pursuing your version of the good life, and we will see you next week.
Bye, y'all.